Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the comprehensive yet informal study of Schelling's System of Transcendental Idealism from 1800. We're smack dab in the middle of the development of German idealism. We're in between Kant and Fichte, and before Hegel's breakout 7 years later with the phenomenology of spirit. Although Hegel's learning, he might even be roommates with Schelling at this. Actually, might be a few
And
years after.
Holderlin,
Yeah, Holderlin and Hegel and Schelling
according to Kantmach.
might be.
Uh,
Yeah, they might be chilling
but
right now while Schelling's expositing a system of
for
transcendental
clarification,
idealism.
Schelling is post Fichte, right?
Yeah. Fichte
Yeah,
is
it's just
like
the way
late
you said it.
17. I mean, at this point, he's Fichte's like colleague, essentially.
Gotcha.
And then
Like
as time
it's sort
goes
of
on,
like one
Fichte
right
falls
after
out.
the other. It's like one after the other. It's like Kant, then Mammon, and then Fichte, and then Schelling, and then uh,
And
Hegel.
yeah, yep. And then
And I
Schelling,
skipped Reinhold, but that's okay
yeah, and
because I don't
Schulze
know anything about
and
Reinhold.
all these other smaller, lesser known post Kantians, and pre Fichteans, uh, but
Yeah,
and
I saw on Lit there's like a whole reader between Kant and Fichte.
oh, there is, yeah. It's fucking
There's like
it's intense, yeah. At
it's
least in
like
terms of like the amount. I didn't expect that until I got at the new school, and I was like, wow, people are really into these post Kantians. Um, it's not very many,
uh,
but there is a small group. But and then Schelling also ends up coming back like after Hegel and like
it's all
takes
very
over.
hard to
Uh,
understand what they're saying. And for some reason, Schelling so far seems way easier to understand.
yeah. He does get weird and esoteric. The only other work I've read by Schelling is called The Ages of the World, and that's fucking that's not this. That's hard and confusing,
Gotcha.
but this is chill. Uh, Knock on wood. So yeah, we're here in the system of transcendental idealism. We're at the end of the introduction, which is the last section, section 4 of the introduction. It's called the organ of transcendental philosophy, and this is coming right after Schelling's pretty well known um, notion, I guess, that philosophy culminates in art, or the philosophy of art. Um, it's the organon of philosophy. So I don't know if the organ and the organon philosophy are going to be separate, but I'd imagine we're going to be talking about the philosophy of art a little bit more. It kind of ends off on this very like cliffhangery, but also like pretty culminating claim as well. And the reason philosophy of art is this sort of culmination point is because transcendental idealism. I should have thought I'd
I
recap this.
can give a crack at it.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Basically, Schelling seems to have the idea that the reason our two intuitions about the world, one, that it has certain laws, and two, that we are free to act within it, despite the laws, points to a preordained harmony between consciousness and subjective experience and the objective natural world. And he thinks the reason for this, he says the reason for this is that the subjective is actually unconsciously the creator of the objective. And art is the culmination because it makes this unconscious process, it brings this unconscious process of creation into consciousness. It becomes the conscious act of creation. So the subject creates an object and knows that it is the subject in the process of creating an object, rather than being sort of alienated from itself, you could say, actually. That's something that just occurred to me. It has sort of a resonance of this idea of like alienation,
Yeah. Um,
right? So
True.
art is the unalienated subject, the subject which is right back at home in itself. It knows that it is the creator, of its creation, rather than believing itself to be sort of along for the ride.
Yeah. And these are the two paragraphs that kind of explain that in Schelling's own terms. So I think that's I was going up too far to look for it, but it's actually just right here. So cool. Well, with all that being said, unless there are more preliminary remarks, we can I think get into the organ of transcendental philosophy. Um, do you want to read, Pat, or should I kick us off?
Sure. The sole immediate object of transcendental concern is the subjective. The sole organ of this mode of philosophizing is therefore inner sense, and its object is such that it cannot even become, as that of mathematics, an object of outer intuition. The mathematical object is admittedly no more located outside the knowing process than that of philosophy. The whole existence of mathematics depends upon intuition, and so it also exists only in intuition. But this intuition itself is an external one. The mathematician, therefore, furthermore, is never directly concerned with intuition, the act of construction itself, but only with the construct, which can certainly be presented externally, whereas the philosopher looks solely at the act of construction itself, which is an absolutely internal thing.
Yeah, this
So
is
this
an
is very
interesting
interesting.
dichotomy. And
Well, he's
yeah,
yeah. It's really interesting to me because like he's using the inner sense in a more or less Kantian way, but he seems to say that mathematics is always the result of the an external sense, which Kant disagrees with because Kant says that arithmetic is calculation based on the inner sense of time.
yes. Um,
If I'm interpreting this correctly,
no,
like
I think
he's
so.
got a little
I
bit of
mean,
a
yeah,
he's building off of and slightly disagreeing with Kant here because he's saying that arithmetic is mathematics, so it's external essentially. Whereas
yeah, and I'm
Kant would say that
wondering if there's
arithmetic
some
is
like
based on the inner sense.
Cartesian, like almost what would you call it, like meshing or synthesizing of like arithmetic and geometry in Schelling's view. I don't know. This would have to go into like a niche scholarly study of Schelling's understanding of the nature of mathematics. Um, but I mean,
Yeah,
the,
philosophy of
the reason,
mathematics and Schelling and
yeah, that sounds like a fun dissertation. But the more relevant reason I'm bringing this up is because I guess is to make also like the more general point that uh, yeah, this is definitely like could be contentious. I think you depending on how what you take mathematics to be and how separate you view its sub categories, uh, you could certainly agree or disagree with this. So I'll leave that just to ponder because I don't want to make I don't know enough. I think, at least just from this to further that. But it's an interesting thing to have in our minds as we go through this. And then something I also wanted to touch on is that I do think he actually is using uh inner sense. Okay, maybe not inner sense differently the Kant, but I think he's using transcendental subjectivity differently than Kant, because Kant makes a clear distinction between the transcendental, basically subjective perception, and the what he calls empirical subjective inner sense. And it
Hmm.
seems like Schelling is almost dropping that distinction and combining these two into one. I mean, unless I'm misinterpreting, but this is well, he's pointing us back to
I think
section two.
I think he at least uses maybe he acknowledges some distinction there, but maybe he draws those lines differently, right? And he's going to use inner sense. It seems to be that when he uses inner sense, well, it's not 100% clear what he means by inner sense in this introductory paragraph, but it reads as if I had never read Kant the way he uses inner sense. You know, it
Yeah,
reads as if he's asking me to give like a common sense interpretation of like what is inner sense. Well, you look inside and you sense this is what is within me, which is not the more restricted definition that Kant has. That is the way it reads right now. But I don't know if it will stick to that because it's not 100% clear what it is entirely. It seems more intuitive, is what I'll say.
Yeah, it does seem like the more like what we would usually refer to
Like
like
common
the
sense.
I as like yeah this inner sense of a self. Um, but yeah, that's because that's not the sole immediate. Well, okay, he does say immediate object of transcendental concern. So yeah, because the when Kahneman makes that distinction, it's very mediated by a whole transcendental deduction. So okay, yeah, it is. It's a little vague then. I guess just what he's saying. But well, in terms of that subjectivity in a sense. But I mean, overall, his point is
Yeah,
essentially that the
I think his
philosopher
broad
is like an
point is that it's
artist,
a
and the
priori.
mathematician's like a scientist. That's just
I
basically.
think above all, he's making the point at this juncture simply that transcendental philosophy is a priori.
Um.
And a priori, like sort of, it's inner in a more fundamental sense even than mathematics because it
Yes.
cannot
Yes.
be
A priori in
demonstrated.
that sense, because again, if we're getting like in the Kantian details, mathematics is a priori, but it's
Right?
you're
No,
right. You're
he's
right.
acknowledges
Schelling is treating it as something like outside external coming in.
well, he's like it's even more a priori. I think is his point, if that
Yeah.
makes any
Yeah.
sense at all.
No.
Which
No. No. I
I
do.
think
Yeah.
is
I
valid
agree.
because
Right.
like how do you actually learn mathematics as a kid? It's not by like sitting in a room. You use your fingers. You use external like
Yes.
sense
Exactly.
as an
Yep.
aid. So it seems like he's almost getting at this idea that transcendental philosophy is even more a priori.
Yeah, and even then, it's using given material, even if you are doing it, a pure mathematics, um, like theoretical, like it's that's still using time and space. So, um,
Right.
which it,
And
the
doesn't sort of question
we're
the
using
origin.
which is a pre-given construction, I guess is maybe how Schelling would phrase it, whereas he's saying yeah, whereas the philosopher looks solely at the act of construction itself, absolutely an internal thing. Um, yeah, really interesting stuff. I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to cover here?
Nope. That's
Okay.
yep.
Um, I will take a turn here. Moreover, the objects of the transcendental philosopher exist not at all, save insofar as they are freely produced. One cannot be compelled to such production as one can say, by the external depiction of a mathematical figure, be compelled to intuit this internally. Hence, just as the existence of a mathematical figure depends on outer sense, so the entire reality of a philosophical concept depends solely on inner sense. The whole object of this philosophy is nothing else but the act of the intellect according to determinate laws. This action can be grasped only through immediate inner intuition on one's own part, and this too is possible only through production. But that is not all.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I feel weird for finding that funny, but that's yeah, that's that's it's an interesting rhetorical move there.
Yeah, he's almost selling us transcendental philosophy
But
right now.
that's not all. You don't just get production, you get more. What is
But
this?
wait, call now.
Yeah. Production plus object. Well,
Yeah,
let's
it's
see what
like
it is.
I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there's a TV show called Better Call Saul, and this is like Better Call Schelling.
Call
True,
Schelling.
true. Better call Schelling. Wanna produce concepts?
Did you know that you have rights? The inner sense even says so.
Yeah. Did you know you're a creator? Mathematicians hate him. um,
Better
also,
call
welcome
Schelling.
Kirk. Kirk has joined us for Schelling study. That's cool. Um, okay, well, yeah, let's see what Schelling is selling us here. Okay, in philosophizing, one is not simply the object of contemplation, but always at the same time the subject. Two conditions are therefore required for the understanding of philosophy. First, that one be engaged in a constant interactivity, a constant producing of these original acts of the intellect. And second, that one be constantly reflecting upon this production. In a word, that one always remain the same time both the intuited, the producer, and the intuitant. Um, yeah, basically self-consciousness, right? I think is just
Yeah.
what he's saying. But not, any self-consciousness, specifically self-consciousness of your conscious production of uh, concepts, I guess.
For
Action of
some
the
reason,
intellect according to determinate laws.
even though I haven't, for some reason, even though I haven't read them, this idea of like recognizing like your subconscious production of concepts kind of reminds me of the philosopher Gilles Deleuze.
Yeah,
Um,
me too. I've been getting Deleuze vibes this whole, this whole time. Yeah. Um, Although I can't say too much else, I have to read more Deleuze. But yeah, that basic ethos I think is very present in this Schelling here. Um, cool. Um, I mean, yeah, I don't think there's that paragraph is pretty clear. Is there anything else anybody wanted to say anything about it? Um, Actually, I wanted to further on these mathematical discussions. Uh, I have a feeling he's just talking about like geometry, like a mathematical figure. Like I don't know. Do we describe numbers
Well,
as
he's
figures?
using
I guess you
geometry, but
could.
he says mathematics. He
No,
says
he does.
mathematics.
He does. I'm just trying to think of like what he has in mind. But I mean, yeah, I guess he could.
I mean, clearly he's using geometry as his examples, but he didn't say geometry. And
Yeah.
Schelling's a smart guy. He understands the difference between simply mathematics and geometry.
No, he does. It's just yeah.
Right.
I,
So I don't know.
yeah. Um, cool. Okay. Kirk, do you want to read number 3 if you're here now?
um, no, no.
Um, okay.
I mean, unless you want me to.
No, you
No,
don't
that's
have to.
fine.
It's fine. I was just seeing if you wanted to.
I'll just read it.
Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Okay. Through this constant double activity of producing and intuiting, something is to become an object which is not otherwise reflected by anything. Okay. We cannot here demonstrate, though we shall in the sequel, that this coming to be reflected of the absolutely non-conscious and non-objective is only possible through an aesthetic act of the imagination. So I'd like to stop and break this down a little bit. Okay, so through this constant double activity of producing and intuiting, something is to become an object which is not otherwise reflected by anything. Meaning that only the act of transcendental activity reflects the object that is represented by like this transcendental philosophy.
Yeah,
Like
I think he's basically just saying this is like an imminent process. Like there's a like the subject is the object. Like there's no like external uh re- reflect like there's no like secondary, I guess, concept to which this object would be like tied like reflected by.
All right. Perhaps. All right. So we cannot here demonstrate, though we shall in the sequel, that this coming to be reflected of the absolutely non-conscious and non-objective. So how is this subjective experience non-conscious? I understand how it's non-objective, but
Uh
how is it absolutely non-conscious?
I mean, something that comes to mind, although he hasn't really explained it too much, is that for example, the experience, right? Like the transcendental unity of
Mm-hmm.
perception, which I'd imagine is something he agrees with on some level, even though he's made it a little unclear to what extent he's siding with Kant and agreeing with Kant and endorsing Kant. But I mean, on some level he is, and I think this is a pretty basic like point, right? In Kant that would qualify for non-conscious production of inner, what Schelling's calling inner sense, but would Kant would call like the transcendental subject, right? It's the experience itself is a synthesis of the imagination, right? That's what it is. Um,
So it's that idea that maybe like if you use qualia, it's qualia isn't conscious in the sense that it isn't the result of thoughtful reflection or concern or anything like that. Rather, it is reflected upon. So it's non-objective because it doesn't exist in the world, and it's non-conscious in the sense that it is not like a thought thing. It's not a representation.
Yeah, exactly. It's the product of a unconscious production process.
Okay. Well, we'll go with that for now. Is possible only through the aesthetic act of the imagination. Okay, we'll get to that later, I guess, because he says we will. This much, however, is apparent from what we have already shown, namely that all philosophy is productive. Thus, philosophy depends as much as art does on the productive capacity, and the difference between them rests merely on the different direction taken by the productive force. For whereas in art the production is directed outwards, so as to reflect the unknown by means of products, philosophical production is directed immediately inwards, so as to reflect it in intellectual intuition.
This definitely is not Kant
That's definitely not Kant.
anymore.
Yeah.
We've left.
So we gotta get a better grip on what he means by intuition here. But intuition is something that notoriously like they shift uh, the term around all the time. Do you remember what the German word is here?
No.
Because I know that Schopenhauer and Hegel both use intuition in a different way from Kant. So, yeah. I don't know. We should come back to that, but there's a particular word that is usually translated as intuition, and it all of them use it differently. So
I do have an. I mean, you can continue, but I just want to say that I have in the English translation, and usually the translators make notes, so I'm gonna see if I can like possibly find one.
I'm gonna finish the paragraph while you do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
The proper sense by which this type of philosophy must be apprehended is thus the aesthetic sense. And that is why the philosophy of art is the true organon of philosophy. That's going to need to be defined and fleshed out more.
Yeah.
Like, what he means by aesthetic here.
Yes. I'm also not seeing anything for
Dang.
how things were translated. Unfortunate. Okay, well. Okay. What was I gonna say? Well, I think we can pull something potentially, assuming this is correct. It could be wrong, but I mean, just to philosophize for a bit, speculate. Intellectual intuition, and Kant famously says we don't have that. Right?
Yeah.
We don't
No, yeah,
possess
Kant
that
doesn't say we
like
have
faculty
intellectual
or
intuition.
power or whatever you want to call
Kant,
it.
like, specifically says that there could be something called intellectual intuition, but that human beings don't have it.
Yes. So Schelling seems to think we have it, and that we
Yes,
do
he
it.
does. Well, maybe he's talking about something different from Kant in the first place.
That's
Or
true, but I'm
maybe
just
he
saying
isn't,
if he
which would be
is.
pretty crazy.
Well, so here's the thing. He's coming off of Fichte, and Fichte also thinks we have intellectual intuition. Like Fichte thinks the eye is what holds from what I understand. We should read Fichte to see, but
Yeah, Schopenhauer does not. Schopenhauer is very critical of that concept in particular.
yes, he is. I remember that. Yeah, but so we've got Kant and Schopenhauer on one side, Fichte and possibly Schelling on the other side. But it's seeming like it anyway. That's sort of what I wanted to like posit is that it seems like he's taking more of the side of Fichte here, where the subject becomes its own object, and we have somehow that this gives it, this philosophical production is intellectual, or at least it's reflected in intellectual intuition, which I think might be for Fichte how we have the not I. If I'm This is not me coming off him reading him recently. This is like me trying to remember from fucking undergrad in 2022, spring 22. Uh, um, but yeah, I'm almost positive that this is the intellectual intuition is how the I posits the not I, and produces in that way, or Schelling might say produces in that way. So I don't know. Maybe that's what he's getting at. I just figured I'd throw that out there in case that is a thing and has implications possibly. I don't know. But then he says the proper sense by which type of philosophy must be apprehended is thus the aesthetic sense. Right, because I think the reason why is what we opened up this thing with, right? It's the end of section 3.
Well, I just don't know what he means by aesthetic sense. Yet.
Well, he says it up here.
Oh, what does he say?
There is but one such activity, namely the aesthetic, and every work of art can only be conceived only as
So that's the aesthetic activity.
Okay. There's also the aesthetic world.
Yeah,
So
there's
we're
the
wondering
aesthetic sense.
what aesthetic means, like, in general.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm also especially
Well, the
wondering
aesthetic
aesthetic sense. Like, is that like the transcendental aesthetic, or like,
No, I
everyday
doubt it.
sense of like? Well, is that like the ability to perceive?
It seems like it's the
Well-
ability to create.
Well, that's not a sense. That's a productive activity.
right.
So what makes it sense? Like appreciation of the fine arts? Like we judge a philosophy based on how pretty it is? Is that what he's saying?
It might be with how we. It might be just based on like this context of what he's already said. I think it might be how we take in aesthetics and judge aesthetics.
But that would entail that we basically judge a philosophy by the same standards as art. Meaning, if it's pretty, we believe.
I don't think so. I think it's saying we by properly I guess Schelling would say sensing, but I would say like comprehending, aesthetics, we will grasp the truth of philosophy, basically.
But what does he actually say here? This proper sense. Ah, I see. So it's not just that the philosophy might be judged through other means, but we only really get it.
Yes,
if
we only understand philosophy once we are able to like
see the beauty in
art.
It. Okay,
And the reason
that
I'm thinking that's the case is because they basically, it seems like they converge.
I see. Okay,
converge
that's one
at the
plausible
philosophy of
interpretation. I think we've got a lot of questions still to
I
figure
think
out.
it will get cleared up as well. He's being very
Yeah.
open about like this is not developed. I'm just telling you like what my
This
conclusion
is the introduction to my book. It's an introduction.
Yeah.
So
which
what do you
Hegel
expect?
famously like. I can see why Hegel would get annoyed at something like this, and then write in his preface 7 years later that prefaces are fucking stupid. Just give me the argument, give me the development of thought. Stop giving me this does not actually, this doesn't qualify as philosophy. Which I can understand from a philosophical sense, but I guess from a more like practical and potentially pedagogical sense. I do find it helpful when people are like, this is what I think broadly construed, and now I will give you the arguments for them.
Yeah.
So that's what he's doing. So, okay. Pat, do you want to finish up this this second little bit here?
Oh, sure, yes. From ordinary reality, there are only two ways out. Poetry. Yeah, that got really dark. He's been such a
So
bloomer.
why is he writing
This
so
whole
goofy
time.
today?
Yeah, he's been like a hell of a bloomer this entire time, and then suddenly there's only two ways out of reality.
Maybe
Okay.
he met Schopenhauer. in the street.
like he started off, he's Billy Mays, and now he's Schopenhauer.
The
Okay,
pipeline.
from ordinary reality, there are only two ways out: poetry, which transports us into an ideal world, and philosophy, which makes the real world vanish before our eyes. It is not apparent why the gift for philosophy should be any more widely spread than that for poetry, especially in that class of persons in whom, either through memory work, than which nothing is more immediately fatal to productivity, or through dead speculation destructive of all imagination, the aesthetic organ has been totally lost. Okay,
It's okay. Clearly, it's over for Shell. He's in a doomer mode. But what is what is he saying here?
he's being Schopenhauer. This is
Is he
somehow
saying
Schopenhauer.
philosophy is underappreciated compared to poetry?
Uh, well, he says first of all, there's two ways out of
Wait, no, the
reality:
opposite, right?
poetry and no. I think he's just saying that philosophy. You're not going to get any more philosophers than you are poets, I guess. Which I don't know why he needs to say that, but that is what he's saying.
Yeah, I think he's just making the point that poetry and philosophy
I think
don't
he's basically just
aren't
realistic. He's
realistic.
special.
Yeah.
I think he's basically just saying like he's special. That's pretty much it. Like
Yeah, well,
he's
I
kind of
just
just
think he's saying
glazing
something
himself.
more at the end. Like he's making some point about like art being dead, basically, or at least our ability
No,
to
no,
do
no.
art.
Art isn't dead. It's philosophy that's dead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Especially among the class, either through memory work, like.
No, he's saying if like he's saying like if you try to memorize too much stuff or you do
Oh,
whatever dead
okay.
speculation is, I don't know what it is, but whatever he means by dead speculation, these things will dull your sense for art, which will make you a bad philosopher.
Oh, I see. Probably like, I don't know,
I don't
dogmatism.
know.
I don't
I
know.
don't know what it means,
Wait,
but
you said autism?
No,
dog.
dogmatism.
Oh,
Like
dogmatism.
pre-critical metaphysics, basically. Like as an
Okay.
example, at least. I don't know. That's the case. That's what I'd imagine. Like someone describing at this point in like the development of Western philosophy. Like I could imagine them calling something like that dead speculation. I don't know that
Yeah, I
that's what he's
don't
talking about
know
though.
what he means by
He
dead
seems like
speculation.
this seems like a tweet like something he would tweet
Yeah,
like in the
yeah.
current moment of
This
his
is,
age where everybody would
whatever
like.
he's saying, yeah, exactly. This isn't like serious philosophy. He's just glazing himself.
Yeah, and making a cultural commentary. Oh
Yeah,
my
he's
god,
just going
imagine people
like,
reading Zizek in like 200 years. They're going to be like, what the fuck is this movie? Oh my god.
yeah.
Well, okay. Number 4 is here. Kirk, do you want to read this or should I
Uh,
take a crack
4.
at it?
You said you want me to read it? Or I can read it?
I'm just asking you if you want to. You can if you'd like to.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, sure, I'll read.
Cool.
Okay, so starting at 4.
Yep.
Okay. So it is needless to linger. It's needless to linger over the commonplaces about a native sense of truth, since we are wholly indifferent to its conclusions. Though one might ask whether the conviction could still be sacred to one who takes for granted the most certain of all, that there are things outside us. Let us also take one more look at the so-called claims of the common understanding. In matters of philosophy, the common understanding has no claims whatever, save that to which every object of inquiry is entitled. Um, Namely, to be completely accounted for. Thus, it is no concern of ours to prove the truth of what it takes to be true. No, we merely have to lay bare the inevitability of its solutions. It is agreed that the objective world belongs only to the necessary limitations which make self-consciousness, the I am, possible. For the common understanding it is sufficient from if from this opinion itself the necessity of its own view is again derived. Um, for this purpose, it is necessary not only that the inner workings of our mental activity be thrown open, the mechanism of necessary presentation veiled, but also that it be shown by which that what peculiarity of our nature it is ordained that what has reality and intuition is reflected to us as something present outside us. Just as natural science brings forth idealism out of realism, in that it spiritualizes natural laws into laws of mind, or appends the formal to the material. So transcendental philosophy brings forth realism out of idealism, in that it materializes laws of mind into laws of nature, or annexes the material to the formal.
Um, cool. Thanks. Um, I was a little lost at what he was saying at the beginning. Uh,
So the first thing, needless to linger over commonplaces about a native sense of truth, since we are wholly indifferent to its conclusions, one might ask.
so is he
Uh,
just saying like the common understanding of what truth is basically doesn't matter to us at least at this
no,
point?
one might, yeah, though one might ask what other conviction could be still be sacred to one who takes for granted the most certain of all. Though one might ask what other conviction
Oh,
could
I think he's just
still be.
saying there that like that the a common like understander of the world might be like, okay, buddy, well if you are doubting the outside world, then what do you have? um,
Sure.
Yeah, I
So we
think
are
isn't
wholly.
this the argument that a certain Scottish philosopher named I believe Thomas Reid, Reid, made against Hume. Um, Specifically, I think Reid said that like basically this sort of skeptical philosophy of Hume was against common sense, and that basically direct sense experience of what he considered external reality should be like the foundational points. But if my memory serves me correctly, it seems like he's kind of arguing against that sort of common sense realism. I think is the name of his philosophy.
So hold on. You got wholly different to its conclusion. Might
well, yeah, that's the
ask.
position that Schelling is like taking in this almost like Socratic
Like.
dialogue. He's
What's the
he's
position?
saying the common understander, yeah, is basically a naive realist and would say, okay, his actual thing is that for like the common understander, uh, there's no conflict between the world and the subject. He says they're merged, and both you know uh, uh, hardcore materialism and hardcore transcendental idealism both take one side out of the that fusion that makes up the common understanding. Um, so then I guess he's saying, okay, well, if us as the transcendental idealist is saying there's nothing outside of us, at least from this fundamental principle uh, level, uh, the other side or the common understander would say, okay, well, if you don't have that, then what do you have? Um, and then I guess he's saying the principle then that or the conviction that we have is that everything needs to be completely accounted for.
Well, this sentence I understand. The common understanding has no claim to truth, but it does have a claim that philosophy needs to account for the common understanding. That I
Yes.
understand. Thus, it is no concern of ours to prove the truth of what it takes to be true. That I don't get. What does that mean? The truth of what it takes to be true?
He's basically just saying we don't need to like entertain what like we don't need to give like we don't need to give another justification of truth itself because of what of this
Because
previous sentence. Like this makes it such
the
that we
common
no longer have to
understanding.
justify like what we're taking to be true.
How does that justify? This
Um,
sentence
I
says.
don't know,
This
but
sentence.
that seems to be what he's saying.
This sentence says. This sentence says we don't have to do anything with common sense except explain why we have it. And then the next sentence says we don't need to prove what the truth of what it takes to be true.
Oh wait, I might understand. I think he's I think he's using like truth and true as like a more of like a rhetorical like from the perspective of the common understander. Like truth
Oh,
is.
oh, oh, oh! To prove the truth of what the common understanding takes to be
Yes,
true.
yes. I think that's what he's saying.
We nearly need to lay bare the inevitability of the delusions. What it, meaning the common
Yes, yes.
understanding, takes
It
to be
just
true.
clicked
We
for me
don't need to
too.
prove
Yes.
that it's true. We just need to prove that its delusions are inevitable. Okay, I understand. I understand.
I do as well. It clicked at very similar times.
Wait,
He just
so
wrote it
basically
in like
he's
the
saying
weirdest fucking way possible.
we don't need to justify
Prove the
criticizing
common.
common sense.
No. He's saying we don't need to prove that common sense is true. We just need to prove that common sense, like the delusions of common sense, are inevitable. That's all.
So he's saying that common sense is false.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's saying that it has no claim to the truth one way or the other.
And it's delusional.
So that does seem to be saying that it's false. So yeah, he does seem to be saying that common sense is
But yeah,
false.
but I think that's kind of what I was asking, like what he was
Yeah,
criticizing.
I mean, most philosophers take common sense to be false. It's very difficult to make common sense true.
Unless you're
Well, yeah, and
Common
analytic
sense kind of
that's why
contradicts
I
what
brought
he's.
up.
century.
That's why I brought up Thomas Reed, because like that's the only, well, and I think G. Moore is the other one. Like those are the two guys I've heard like have associated with common sense arguments against idealism.
Yeah, I mean, I think we
Yeah.
brought up G.E. Moore previously as well when we were reading this.
But I don't know that G. Moore is totally common sense about everything. But he does seem to be like he is much more in that direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess he's saying, yeah, common sense is false, and we don't need to prove that common sense is true. We just need to prove, it's delusional in inevitable ways. So, yeah, I understand now.
And I think he's saying why that's the case right after this.
Wait, uh, it is agreed that the objective world belongs only to the necessary limitations that make self-consciousness possible. The common what? It is agreed that the objective world belongs only to the necessary limitations that make self-consciousness possible. I maybe understand that.
Which is basically
The
just a
idea that,
Kantian view, right?
yeah, I think so. That he's that the world is objective, and we know it's objective because it limits our experience, therefore making self-consciousness possible.
Yeah.
For the common understanding, it is sufficient if from this opinion itself the necessity of its own view is again derived. Okay, so basically the idea that that there is an objective world in that it limits our consciousness, and that is the root of common sense, in the sense that, like, if I walk into a wall,
Yeah.
I'll be stopped.
Yeah. And I guess his real response is in the next paragraph, right? Because
I think this is actually, I guess this is kind of like a refutation of I forget who the guy was, but the guy who refuted Berkeley by kicking a rock and say, "I refute it thusly," and he
I
kicks
forgot
a rock.
about that. That's funny.
Very stupid. Very stupid.
I remember that from
Clearly never
undergrad.
done it.
Dr. Lee told me about that. I completely forgot until now.
Samuel Barber, Samuel Baker, Samuel something. I think. Anyway, yeah, I refute it thusly. Kicks a rock.
Samuel Johnson.
Samuel Johnson. Gotcha. Yeah, very, very poor argument from someone who's clearly not read Berkeley, or not closely at all. But that's a tangent. I think that's basically what he's responding to.
Yeah.
He's sort of defending idealism.
And then he's saying, yeah, we're gonna unveil the inner workings of our mind and show that this is wrong.
Yeah. Big if true.
Yeah. Cool. Well. But it's also eventually going to return to realism, but this time it's not going to be. It's basically the at least it has the similar structure of what Kant was doing. He's undoing dogmatic, either materialism or empiricism or whatever, showing the a priori structure of the mind, and then bringing that to a sort of probably what's going to end up being it sounds like an empirical realism, but one that's going to be critical instead of dogmatic. Okay, and then that's the end of the introduction. Then we're gonna next time get into actual part one, because this is just introduction. So cool beans.
This is a short introduction.
It is a short. It's 4 sections, 4 not very long sections, relatively speaking. Yeah, cool. Well,
A Schellingian wisdom of the day. My Schellingian wisdom of the day is, transcendental philosophy. Buy now. It's a special offer. There's more.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not 100% satisfied, you'll get your money back. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna go off of yours, and then mine will be, yeah. Make sure you're not only producing, but make sure you're self-conscious of your production. I don't know yet if you should actually reflect it in intellectual intuition. I'm gonna hold off on going that far, but
Yeah.
but you should. I do agree. You should reflect on your
My
production.
Schellingian wisdom of the day is that common sense isn't always trustworthy.
True.
That's a good
That's a
Schellingian
good
wisdom
one.
of the day.
That's your first ever wisdom of the day, Kirk. Congratulations.
It's a good Schellingian wisdom of the day. Although that's I think every philosopher would. It's hard to
Not
think of a
every.
philosopher.
Not every.
Maybe not GE
Careful
more.
with your words. But yeah, no, that I get the gist. Yeah, generally the field kind of exists to not do that.
Unless you're Aristotle. Aristotle's pretty commonsensical, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but he's not Socrates though. Socrates got killed because he stopped
Nope, just
doing
Aristotle.
the thing. Huh?
Nope, just Aristotle. So maybe do trust common sense, because otherwise the Athenians will kill you.
No, that's based.
No, that's based. All right, cool.
We'll read some ficta next time. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah. So next time we'll get into on the principle of transcendental idealism. I'll probably have the book for this one because it looks like this just gets cut off, and my book did come in. So we'll cool. All right. Well, we'll see you then for that. Thank you. God bless. Bye
You're
bye.
done.